Israël devant la justice. L'Afrique du Sud l'accuse de violer la Convention sur le génocide à Gaza. Pour cela, elle a remis un dossier de 84 pages devant la Cour internationale de justice, la plus haute instance juridique des Nations Unies.
South Africa has therefore, through our government, decided to take the apartheid state of Israel to the International Court of Justice and have them held accountable for the atrocities that they've been meting out against the Palestinians.
אף אחד לא יעצור אותנו. לא האג, לא ציר הרשע ולא אף אחד אחר.
We want to continue to say to our brothers and sisters, comrades and friends in Gaza and all over occupied Palestine, they must be steadfast and continue to resist occupation, and they must continue to resist the aggressor. And therefore, we want to say to the international community that as much as you are able to stand side by side with us in our fight for liberation in South Africa, we call on you to stand and be counted and stand in support of the Palestinians as they too seek self-determination. My name is Zwelivelile Mandela. I'm a member of Parliament in the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa, serving in the National Assembly. Well, for us as South Africans, we can relate with what the Palestinians are experiencing because we've had to undergo 350 years of colonialism coupled with 60 years of a brutal apartheid regime.
Apartheid really began in 1948, but separating black Africans from the white minority had long been a policy aim. Laws made white people officially superior, and the large black majority faced discrimination in every aspect of their lives. Living, doing business or owning land in white areas was banned. There were separate public facilities, transport and schools. Interracial marriage was banned. Many had no right to citizenship and were regarded as aliens in major cities.
And therefore, we have taken the stance that we will never be silent wherever apartheid shows its ugly head. And we will certainly not be quiet when there is ethnic cleansing, crimes against humanity, and genocide that is orchestrated in full view of the global community.
This is not revenge from South Africa.
Il ne s'agit pas d'une vengeance de l'Afrique du Sud contre Israël. Nous partons du principe que tout État pratiquant l'apartheid, ou que ce soit dans le monde, a été déclaré comme un crime contre l'humanité et qu'il ne devrait donc jamais être autorisé à se reproduire. Il s'agit d'une convention des Nations Unies. Nous sommes donc ici pour protéger les droits du peuple palestinien à Gaza.
South Africa has therefore, through our government, decided to take the apartheid state of Israel to the International Court of Justice and have them held accountable for the atrocities that they've been meting out against the Palestinians.
Israël devant la justice. L'Afrique du Sud l'accuse de violer la Convention sur le génocide à Gaza. Pour cela, elle a remis un dossier de 84 pages devant la Cour internationale de justice, la plus haute instance juridique des Nations Unies.
We must request and appeal to the comrades in the civil society in particular, who stood side by side with us during our darkest days in South Africa, living under a brutal apartheid regime. You had the anti-apartheid movement, which was a global campaign to isolate and demonize the apartheid regime of South Africa. And you also had a Free Mandela campaign, which sought for the release of President Mandela and all other political prisoners that were incarcerated in apartheid South African jails. Therefore, our freedom didn't only come through our own efforts alone as South Africa, but through the support of fellow Africans on the African continent, including comrades in the Europe and the international community. And therefore, we want to say to the international community that as much as you were able to stand side by side with us in our fight for liberation in South Africa, we call on you to stand and be counted and stand in support of the Palestinians as they too seek self-determination. Violence has always been utilized by settler colonialists to oppress any indigenous communities they came across. Such has been evident in America, has been evident in Africa, has also been evident in Australia with the Aboriginals, where the settler colonialists will stop short of total elimination of the indigenous societies. And this has come through genocides and brutal, oppressive regimes. In this instance, therefore, many liberation movements, in order to defend the lands of their fathers and forefathers, they've had to wage an armed struggle in order to defeat the settler colonialists. And it was President Nelson Mandela that said, with us in South Africa, we had simply two choices: to submit or resist. And he called upon us to resist, and therefore we picked up arms in order to liberate our country.
Ils sont plusieurs milliers ce matin du 16 juin 1976. Des collégiens, des lycéens de l'immense ghetto noir de Soweto. Ils protestent pacifiquement contre l'obligation d'étudier en Afrikaans, la langue de l'oppresseur blanc, au pays de l'apartheid.
And therefore, all liberation movements will be faced with these two choices, either to submit or to resist. And therefore, in most instances, when you choose to resist and you pick up arms to wage a fight to liberate your people, you are often described by settler colonialists as terrorists.
J'ai reçu des balles, j'en ai encore. Ici dans ma main, vous voyez, j'ai une mauvaise blessure. Ce sont nous les révolutionnaires. Sans nous, le gouvernement ne serait pas là. C'est nous qui avons renversé le régime de l'apartheid.
And in this regard, we want to continue to say to our brothers and sisters, comrades and friends in Gaza and all over occupied Palestine, they must be steadfast and continue to resist occupation, and they must continue to resist the aggressor. We have seen a groundswell of people now coming out to the streets in protest. And therefore, we need to have a coordinated effort in ensuring that civil society is able to effectively mobilize society and ensure that they educate their communities on the plight of the Palestinian people. And in doing so, we have to then be able to support the Palestinian resistance in all means necessary in ensuring them that we are able to enable them to realize their freedom in their lifetime. But we also need to understand that internally, there must be unity amongst Palestinian resistance forces, and therefore we need to advocate for unity amongst Palestinians themselves so that they are able to have a coordinated effort in fighting off the aggressor and the settler colonialist. But we have over 6 million Palestinians in the diaspora. Just like us in South Africa, our South Africans living in exile became ambassadors of our struggle for liberation. So any news that came out of South Africa, they were the first to be able to take and share with the world. Therefore, we want to make a call to civil society to activate all Palestinians in the diaspora to ensure that they are able to communicate the facts that are coming out of Gaza and occupied Palestine, and ensure that is communicated through the electronic intifada. And we have seen its impact, that now we have got groundswell of people that have come out in protest in support of the Palestinian struggle. But also we need to focus on how we can effectively boycott and divest and have sanctions against the Zionist apartheid state of Israel.
L'Afrique du Sud demande donc à la CIJ des mesures provisoires en attendant que l'affaire soit examinée plus en profondeur, ce qui va prendre du temps. Parmi ces mesures, il y a par exemple une suspension de l'offensive à Gaza, la fin des déplacements forcés des populations, une facilitation de l'accès humanitaire et une préservation des preuves.
Civil society needs to ensure that they continuously are exerting pressure on their government to isolate apartheid Israel and ensure that we are able to boycott all the products that are coming out of apartheid Israel. Most importantly, we need to ensure that we cut off trade with the Zionist apartheid state of Israel. And we have seen how the Yemenis have been able to blockade the Red Sea and ensure that no ship will go through the Red Sea in order to gain access to the apartheid state of Israel. And you have seen how Malaysia has also refused to have any permits granted to any Israeli ship coming onto their ports. We have made a clarion call to all African countries along the coastal lines of the African continent to also boycott Israeli ships and ensure that they refuse and do not grant them permits to access their ports. In doing so, we will be able to isolate apartheid Israel, just as we were able to isolate apartheid South Africa.
Je ne vois pas de possibilité que les indigènes puissent avoir les mêmes droits que les Européens. Pour la bonne raison que s'ils avaient les mêmes droits, puisqu'ils sont 10 millions et les Blancs 3, ça serait la chasse des Blancs.
All white supremacists and settler colonialists that have come to colonize the African continent have continued to show their true colors, even in the plight of the Palestinians, where they have clubbed together in support of the Zionist apartheid state of Israel.
Je veux réaffirmer, au nom de la représentation nationale, notre totale solidarité et notre soutien inconditionnel.
In the face of this unspeakable tragedy, there's only one possible response. Europe stands with Israel.
We maintain again that Israel has a right and indeed an obligation to defend itself.
Accusing Israel of genocide is a complete distortion of victims and perpetrators, in my view, and it is just wrong.
This is nothing new to us because the very same countries supported apartheid South Africa right into the mid-80s, and we were still able to defeat and collapse apartheid South Africa. And I can assure you that the Zionist apartheid state of Israel will meet the same ending like apartheid South Africa.
Les Sud-Africains ordinaires veulent que le passé soit connu, pour être certains qu'il ne se répète pas. Ils ne le veulent pas par esprit de vengeance, mais pour que nous avancions vers l'avenir ensemble.